The attendees at this conference reflect Sustain's Alliance, charities championing sustainable food, farming and fishing, and broader networks of organisations and enterprises operating some of the most pioneering efforts to create a healthy and sustainable food system. I know they would join me in thanking you for doing this interview.
Thank you for inviting me to talk about the role of sustainable food and farming in boosting the economic recovery. I only wish that we could all be meeting properly. For now, I must thank you and everyone from the agri-food supply chain for their resilience and their adaptability this year. The response of the sector has been phenomenal, and it has been a timely reminder of the critical importance of domestic food production for our food security. Turning to the important topic we're discussing today, the government commits in the 25-year environment plan to leave the environment in a better condition from that we inherited it in. We're committed to sustainable and profitable farming and fishing. As the Minister for Farming, Fisheries and Food, I want to support farmers and fishermen as they look after land and seas and grow their own businesses. I also want to do all I can to make producing food more sustainable and increase biodiversity. The Agriculture Act will allow us to introduce ambitious new schemes in England based on the principle of public money for public goods, so that we can reward farmers who protect our environment, improve animal welfare, and produce high quality food in a sustainable way. We will also improve transparency in the supply chain to help food producers strengthen their position at the farm gate and seek a fairer return from the marketplace. We launched a consultation on contracts in the dairy sector earlier this year, and we will be publishing our findings early next year. The dairy sector is only the start of our work in this space. Farmers play a really crucial role in our efforts to reach net zero, and we'll make sure that our policies help them to make real progress in this. This will, I hope, be the most significant change to farming in half a century. Our 7-year agricultural transition begins on the 1st of January. Next year, we'll start the move away from direct payments under the Basic Payment Scheme, and the funds that are released from this will be reinvested in farmers right back into new schemes. These schemes will enable sustainable food production, support increased productivity and innovation, deliver for nature, and support, we hope, new entrants into the sector. Last week, we published our plan to achieve sustainable farming, setting out further information on how we will incentivise farmers to improve the environment, animal health and welfare, and reduce carbon emissions. If you haven't already done so, then I'd really urge you to have a good look at this document. Our announcement last week is just one step on this long journey, though. We will also be consulting on the details of delinking and our planned lump sum exit scheme. We will be publishing more details of our farming investment fund and consulting on regulation and enforcement, and all of that will take place early next year. Our environmental land management scheme is the cornerstone of our new agricultural policy. The pilot will open for applications next year. We'll be publishing detailed information about this pilot early next year, including what we'll pay under the Sustainable Farming Incentive throughout the pilot. Our schemes will go fully live in 2024 following this 3-year national pilot of extensive tests and trials. We know that it's important for farmers to have a clear roadmap of the direction in which we're going as soon as possible so that we can all work out what to plant and plan. However, we also want to make sure that we're designing and delivering things that actually work on the ground. This means we will need to learn and adapt as we go. We're deliberately not nailing down the final details of our 2024 schemes at this point because we want to take in our learning as we go. We have about 3,000 farmers involved in tests and trials at the moment. When fully rolled out in late 2024, our new scheme will incentivise sustainable farming practices, create habitats for nature recovery, and establish new woodland and other ecosystem services to help tackle climate change. We'll roll out early elements in 2022 as part of the Sustainable Farming Incentive. And we should be able, in this way, to reach about 5,500 farmers over the next 3 years. The Sustainable Farming Incentive will support more sustainable approaches to farm husbandry to deliver for the environment, such as actions to improve soil health, enhance hedgerows, and promote integrated pest management. We also want to support farmers in protected landscapes and help them diversify their income streams and lay the groundwork for the ELM offer. We'll provide support to farmers via national park authorities and areas of outstanding natural beauty bodies to help grow businesses, create green jobs, enhance biodiversity, and invest in infrastructure to attract more diverse visitors and to support the local economy. This is, we hope, going to deliver on the recommendations of the Glover Review. To have the greatest chance of success and for our changes to have the most benefit and the most lasting impact, it's essential that we work on this approach together. That's why these future schemes will be co-designed and tested in partnership with farmers and other land managers, and we will genuinely learn from what they tell us. The government wants consumers to continue to have a wide range of choice in the food on offer at, we hope, affordable prices, and to ensure that we have a sufficiently and appropriately skilled workforce to be able to meet the demands of our industry. It's our priority to maintain the UK's high standards of animal welfare and food safety. We've taken great steps to ensure that as part of any future trade deals, our standards on food safety, animal health and welfare, and environmental protection will not be watered down. And this has very much been part of the national discussion over this last year as we've passed the Agriculture Act. When it comes to fisheries, our ambition is to set a gold standard for fisheries management to make them more sustainable, safeguarding stocks and the environment in the long term. The Fisheries Act creates the powers to build a sustainable and profitable fishing industry in the best interests of the whole UK and of future generations. We need a healthy and productive marine environment with sustainable fish stocks. The fisheries objectives, joint fisheries statements and management plans should provide a strong legal framework to deliver this ambition of sustainable fisheries. This includes our commitment to set legally binding plans to achieve healthy fish stocks and support fishing at maximum sustainable yield. The Act contains a bycatch objective which seeks to reduce the wasteful practice of discarding fish, an ecosystem objective to minimise and, we hope, where possible, eliminate negative impacts on marine ecosystems, and a new climate change objective, which recognises and combats the impact of fishing on the health of our oceans and planet. We remain committed to achieving good environmental status for our seas, including reducing the impact of fishing pressure on our marine environment. This is part of our commitment to using resources from nature more sustainably and efficiently, a key goal of the 25-year Environment Plan. Sustainable food and farming and fishing are absolutely at the heart of that commitment.
We've heard a lot from other departments, particularly Bays and Treasury, about efforts to stimulate an economic recovery, a green recovery. But disappointingly, despite their huge potential for good jobs, fair economic growth and supporting environmental improvement, food and farming are rarely mentioned. How do you think food and farming enterprises should be supported as part of the green recovery? And how would you advise us as policy and enterprise advocates to win them government support?
Farmers produce world-class British food, which is enjoyed here and around the world. They're vital stewards of our natural environment, from managing our landscapes supporting our supply of clean water to protecting us from natural hazards such as flooding. Of course, we recognise the important role of the agricultural community and the positive contribution that it makes to both our environment and the food sector. So our new scheme is the cornerstone of this new agricultural policy. It's founded on the principle of public money for public goods, and it's intended to provide a powerful vehicle for achieving the goals of the 25-year environment plan, and indeed our commitment to net zero emissions by 2050, as well as at the same time supporting our rural economies. Farmers in protected landscapes operate in challenging, often agricultural conditions, and are often very reliant on direct payments. At the same time, we all know that they provide huge environmental, social, and indeed cultural benefits. So we will provide support to these farmers via national park authorities and areas of outstanding natural beauty bodies to help grow businesses, create green jobs, enhance biodiversity, and invest in infrastructure. This will include support for farm level projects to diversify incomes and prepare for our environmental land management offer, as well as create more green jobs.
Thanks. With the UK leaving the EU, there has rightly been a lot of focus on what will replace the cap, with payments for some public goods through the new environmental land management scheme. However, there are few details on how this and other agricultural transition policies will deliver whole farm agroecology approaches such as organic and agroforestry, and how they'll support an increase in domestic horticultural growers. What plans do you have to boost these areas?
We're working to ensure that the design of our environmental land management scheme reflects the full diversity of environmentally sustainable techniques that are already producing environmental benefits, such as increased biodiversity and improved soil quality. These techniques include organics and regenerative practice, as well as the landscape and character contribution of the uplands, commons, and rare and native breeds. Similarly, we know that we need to make sure that the schemes and initiatives that we design work for the full range and types of and locations of farm. Capturing the maximum number of people in our scheme is key to how well it works. We want to attract a very high uptake and achieve environmental outcomes at scale with an attractive and simple and relevant offer. We'll support these farmers to develop a whole farm plan to help make their land and their businesses sustainable.
We know that UK farmers and food producers could lose their livelihoods if forced to compete against low standard imports. Can you talk us through the process of how government intends to show importers how to meet the high food, environment and animal welfare standards the Conservative manifesto pledged to not compromise on? And now that the Trade and Agricultural Commission has been placed on a statutory footing, its lifespan expanded and its role apparently extended to include trade deal scrutiny, can the Minister tell us if there are plans to expand the membership of the TAC to recruit more experts on trade, environment, animal welfare and consumer issues?
Whether TAC should be on a statutory footing and what the membership should be is currently under very active discussion between departments and government. On Monday this week, the Department for International Trade tabled an amendment to the trade bill that will deliver the commitment that we gave in the course of passing the Agriculture Act. It lays out that in appointing members of the TAC, the Secretary of State must have regard for the fact that members should have appropriate expertise in the areas that the TAC will report on. This covers standards in animal and plant health, animal welfare and environmental protection, as well as expertise in trade policy and law. Further details of the structure and procedures of the TAC are under development and will follow in due course.
Thank you. The certification of products meeting certain sustainability standards, such as organic, biodynamic, leaf mark, Marine Stewardship Council, RSPCA assured, they often return a premium, build trust with buyers and consumers, with some being major growth sectors for exports and domestically for meeting government procurement, public procurement standards. Do you have any plans to turbocharge certification to help British producers benefit from these markets?
In terms of the agricultural transition, we'll be working with accreditation schemes such as LEAF, Organic and Red Tractor to see how membership could help with earned recognition under ELM and what role the bodies operating these accreditation schemes might play in our new farming schemes. We, of course, recognise the role that assurance schemes can play in meeting public sector food procurement standards. As a government, we can't prescribe any single scheme, but procurement policy documents already signpost suppliers to many of the schemes as examples of good practice. Our Food is Great campaign builds global demand, drives awareness and increases positive perceptions of our excellent food and drink products across the world, highlighting our key strengths of quality, traceability and high standards. We're also going to carry out a serious examination of the role of labelling and how that can help in promoting high standards. We're going to consult on this very shortly.
Thank you. Much of the discussion about forging an agreement with the EU has come down to fishing rights, but we want to focus on existing quota and how that could boost coastal communities and revive fish stocks. How would government consider reallocating fishing quota so it's more fairly spread around the UK and to more local fishermen, rather than sold to overseas businesses? And would you consider switching a meaningful portion over to a new system that reward and incentivise more environmentally and socially responsible fishing?
As we set out in the 2018 Fisheries White Paper, of which our Secretary of State in DEFRA is very proud, we will continue to use the current method to allocate our existing share of quota. This should provide certainty and some form of stability for the industry, especially for those who've already invested in the current system. Many people have borrowed and invested money already in the quota system, so obviously we have to respect that. But we also recognise that real imbalances exist. We're developing a new approach to sharing the additional quota that we should get at the end of this year, now we've left the EU. We've recently consulted in England and the Crown dependencies about this. We included options which would see more quota go to smaller scale fishing operations in the inshore sector. We also consulted on draft aims for quota management. We're currently reviewing all the responses we got and we'll be deciding the way forward very shortly.
So another priority coming from government is that of levelling up, so no part of the UK is left out. How do you think government investment in food and farming can help deliver this? And will you champion some of that 4 billion levelling up fund or the new UK shared prosperity fund to be earmarked for food and farming, such as local food infrastructure?
UK Shared Prosperity Fund and Levelling Up Fund will take into account the specific needs of rural communities. The government intends to work with local communities in the delivery of the fund so that it supports citizens across the UK. It will invest in people, communities and local businesses to level up and create opportunity in places that need it most and in places where there are real labour market barriers. The government will publish proposals for the Levelling Up Fund and launch the first round of competitions in the new year. To help prepare for this and for the introduction of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, we'll provide extra funding to support our communities to pilot programmes and these new approaches. The spending review sets out our main strategic elements in the fund. So they are investment in people and skills tailored to local need, investments in communities and place, including cultural and sporting facilities, civic, green and rural infrastructure, community-owned assets, neighbourhood and housing improvements, town centre and transport improvements, and digital connectivity, and investment for local businesses, including support innovation, green and tech adoption, and these will be tailored specifically to local needs.
Thank you. Climate change must always be at the top of our agenda, and COP26 in 2021 will focus on nature-based solutions to the climate crisis. Do you see potential for a circular food economy, keeping value in products that might otherwise go to waste? And how do you think this could be better stimulated?
The UK is genuinely an international leader on tackling food waste. The government's new food surplus and waste hierarchy was published nearly 2 years ago now, in December 2018, and puts as its priorities the use, recovery and disposal of surplus food and waste. At the top of this hierarchy is food waste prevention, followed by redistribution to people in need. To ensure that good food doesn't go to waste, DEFRA has developed a new pilot scheme to reduce food waste, supported by a £15 million fund. Working with WRAP, we've announced a Food Waste Action Week focused on all of our people's food waste for early March next year. Retailers and food businesses also play a really important role in influencing household food waste, and we're working closely with them. This comes on the back of our support for WRAP's latest campaign, Wasting Food, It's Out of Date.
Thank you. Clarifying definitions on bread labelling for products such as sourdough and whole grain could unlock a real boon for smaller bakers and with it thousands more jobs. Is this something that DEFRA might consider as a low-cost option to help consumers and boost enterprise?
Bread and flour regulations define the term wholemeal. We currently have no plans to widen the scope of the regulations to include a definition of sourdough or whole grain. Our view is that this isn't really a regulatory matter. There are differing practices for the production of sourdough through the industry, and we'd encourage producers to work together to reach agreement on whatever sourdough practices suit the industry. We do plan to review these regulations in the future, and we would genuinely welcome comments on these rules.
Leaving the EU has provided some opportunities to review animal feed regulation, and with it the potential for a new eco-feed industry that will provide many jobs in the UK, cheaper animal feed and reduce our reliance on imported feed, much of which comes from soy grown on deforested rainforest land. Is this something the government will consider exploring?
There's a really important connection between the products that we buy and their wider environmental footprint, which is why the UK government's working hard to tackle deforestation and protect wildlife, both here and indeed abroad. We've introduced legislation that would make it a requirement for larger businesses to undertake due diligence on their supply chains. This is just part of a much larger package of measures that we're putting in place to protect, for example, forests. In 2018, the government established an industry-led roundtable on sustainable soya. With the support of this group, 8 of the largest UK supermarkets, who represent between them 83% of the market, have published new sourcing policies to deliver sustainable soya to our market. The roundtable's also working with other national initiatives to share lessons and information on soya imports and to try to support mass market move towards more sustainable soya.
Thank you very much.